Noah Ellers had exactly $4 in his wallet, ketchup stains on his shirt, and a 5-year-old daughter who refused to eat anything that wasn't shaped like a dinosaur. He didn't have time to save someone that morning, but when he heard the scream, he didn't think twice. "Stay here, Poppy," he told his daughter, kneeling next to her on the park bench, heart lurching into his throat. Poppy blinked up at him with wide hazel eyes, her curly ponytail bobbing. "Why?" "Because Daddy's gotta help someone," he said, already running before she could ask more questions. He saw the chaos near the trail, an unleashed dog, massive and snarling, lunging at a woman in a cream blazer and heels far too expensive for the dirt path under her. And she was frozen, arms up, eyes wide. She didn't even scream again, just stood there, staring. Noah didn't hesitate. He grabbed a stick off the ground and launched himself between the woman and the dog. "Hey!" he shouted, waving the branch. "Back off!" The dog snarled, but backed down when Noah stepped forward, growling louder than the mutt. It bolted into the trees. Noah turned to the woman. Her chest was heaving. She looked like she couldn't breathe. "You okay?" he asked, voice still breathless, concern etched deep into his face. She nodded, but her knees buckled. He caught her before she hit the ground. Her perfume hit him first, subtle, expensive. Then he saw her face, and something strange stirred in his gut. She looked familiar, but he couldn't place it. "I thank you," she breathed. "I didn't know what to do. It came out of nowhere." "You're fine now," Noah said, helping her sit on a nearby bench. "Just breathe." Poppy ran up then, arms full of goldfish crackers and concern. "Daddy, is she okay?" The woman blinked at the little girl. "This is your daughter." "Yeah," Noah said. "Poppy, this is..." He looked at the woman questioningly. "Lena," she said softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Lena Zanders." Noah froze. That name, it hit him like a freight train. Lena Zanders, he hadn't heard it in years, but he'd never forgotten it, the girl from his high school English class. The one who used to sit behind him, doodling in her margins. The one who'd kissed him once behind the gym, then vanished weeks later without saying goodbye. She'd moved away to New York or something, and he'd never seen her again, until now. "Wait," he said slowly. "Lena Zanders." From Ridgeview High, her eyes widened. "Oh my God, Noah Ellers," he laughed, stunned. "You remember me," she smiled, and for a moment the years melted. "You used to carry a notebook in your back pocket everywhere." He held up his hands. "Still do." They both laughed. A breeze passed through the trees and Lena hugged her arms. Noah shrugged out of his hoodie and handed it to her without a word. She hesitated. "You don't have to, it's fine," he said. "You're shaking." She took it. "Thanks." Poppy tugged on Noah's sleeve. "Can we eat now?" Noah glanced at Lena. "You want to join us? I mean, it's just peanut butter sandwiches and crackers, but..." Lena looked down at her heels, then at the bench. "Honestly, I'd love to sit for a second." So they sat and talked. Lena asked about Poppy. Noah told her about his job at the auto shop, how he worked nights and weekends, how it had just been him and Poppy since her mom walked out 2 years ago. He didn't say it like he wanted pity, just facts. Simple. Real. Lena listened. Really listened. He asked about her too, but she kept it vague. "I'm in real estate," she said. "Back in Chicago." "Fancy," he teased. She smiled, a little too tightly. "Something like that." But she didn't mention her penthouse or her company, or that she was on Forbes' 30 under 30 list. She didn't say she was worth millions. Because for the first time in a long time, Lena didn't want someone to look at her like a walking checkbook. She just wanted to sit on a bench with an old friend who just saved her life and made her laugh again. They saw each other again the next day, and the next. Lena started showing up at the park with coffee always too, one black for him, one with oat milk for her. Poppy adored her. "Lena paints her nails like sparkles," she'd whispered to Noah like it was top secret information. Noah couldn't stop looking at her. She'd changed, sure, more polished, more poised, but she still had that same shy laugh, the same way of biting her lip when she was thinking, and she remembered everything. "You still like peanut butter with banana slices," she said one afternoon. He blinked. "How do you brought it to lunch every Friday." It made something warm bloom in his chest. She asked about his life and he told her, not everything, but enough. And when she asked if he was dating anyone, he looked her dead in the eye and said, "No. Haven't in a long time." And then he added softly, "But I might want to." She looked down at the grass, cheeks pink. "Yeah, me too." But nothing in Noah's life ever stayed simple. 1 week later, a black SUV pulled up outside the park while Lena was watching Poppy chase butterflies. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, holding a tablet. "Miss Zanders," he said, "we need you to review the final numbers for the Westbrook acquisition." Noah watched from the bench, frowning. Lena stood quickly. "Not now," she hissed. "I told you I'm unavailable today." "Ma'am, the board," I said, "not now." The man glanced at Noah, then nodded. "Of course." Lena turned back, her smile shaky. "Sorry about that, work stuff." Noah's voice was quiet. "You're not in real estate, are you?" She hesitated. "I mean." "Technically, yes," he stood. "Lena, who are you?" She looked torn. "I was going to tell you." "When?" "I didn't want to ruin this," she said, stepping closer. "I didn't want you to see me differently," he scoffed. "You think I care about money?" "No," she said, "but people treat me different." "They always do." Poppy tugged on Noah's hand. "Can we go home?" Noah nodded, eyes still on Lena. "Yeah, baby, let's go." He didn't say goodbye, and Lena didn't stop him. That night, Noah stood in his tiny kitchen, staring at the fridge. The eviction notice was still there, mocking him. He'd fallen for her, hard, and she'd lied, but part of him understood. He didn't like it, but he understood. Poppy patted in, rubbing her eyes. "Is Lena coming tomorrow?" Noah swallowed. "I don't know, Pop. I like her. She smells like cookies." He blinked hard. "Me too, baby." He didn't sleep at all. Lena sat in her penthouse, staring at her untouched dinner, her phone buzzing endlessly with work calls. She hadn't cared about being alone until now. Until a mechanic with oil-stained hands and a daughter with goldfish crackers had looked at her like she wasn't her bank account. She wanted that back. But she didn't know if he'd let her. And then she made a decision. She stood, grabbed her keys, and headed for the elevator. Because Lena Zanders had never chased a man before. But for Noah Ellers, she would. The next morning, Noah's alarm never got the chance to go off. Poppy clambered onto his bed before dawn, her little knees digging into his ribs, her voice far too loud for the hour. "Daddy, the ceiling's dripping on my pillow again." Noah blinked at the cracked plaster above them, then at the trail of water soaking the sheet she dragged behind her. "All right," he groaned, dragging himself upright. "Looks like the roof wants to remind us it needs fixing." Poppy frowned. "Maybe Lena knows a roof guy." Noah rubbed a hand over his face, heart giving a painful jerk. He hadn't heard from Lena since he'd walked away. No calls, no messages, just silence. "She's busy, sweetheart." But she said she didn't work on Sundays. Noah didn't answer. By 8, he had a bucket under the leak, a towel on the floor, and Poppy dressed in her favorite overalls. He shoved a granola bar into his pocket and grabbed his keys. They had nowhere to be, really. But staying in that cramped apartment with its peeling paint and broken heater made his skin itch. He drove without thinking, winding up at the lake on the edge of town. It was quiet there, the kind of quiet that didn't feel heavy. They walked the trail in silence, Poppy kicking leaves as she went. "Can I feed the ducks?" she asked, hopeful. "We don't have any bread." "I saw a lady feeding them tortilla chips once." Noah smiled despite himself. "Tell you what, if any ducks show up, we'll see if they like granola." They sat under a tree, the lake shimmering in the morning sun. Poppy leaned against him, humming a song from the radio. And for a moment it was enough, until a shadow fell over them. He looked up. Lena, no heels this time, just sneakers, jeans, and a windbreaker. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup, no armor. "Hey," she said. He didn't move. Poppy sat up. Lena knelt, opening her arms. "Hey, bug." Poppy launched into her chest with a squeal. Noah stood slowly. "What are you doing here?" "I didn't want to leave things like that," she said, standing with Poppy still clinging to her. "Can we talk?" He hesitated, eyes flicking to his daughter. "I brought coffee," she added quickly, holding up a tray, "and apple juice." Poppy gasped. "The kind with the bendy straw," Lena smiled. "Of course." Noah exhaled and gestured to the bench nearby. "Fine, talk." They sat. Poppy took her juice and wandered toward the edge of the lake, still in earshot but distracted. "I should have told you the truth," Lena began. "I wanted to, but every time I was about to, I'd look at you and think, maybe just one more day of not being the person people expect me to be." He watched her. "You think I'd treat you different because you've got money. No, I think you'd look at me and see someone who doesn't belong in your world. And do you?" Her jaw tightened. "I don't know, but I wanted to. I liked being around you, and Poppy, you both made me feel Real again. He looked down at his hands, calloused and stained. You think I didn't notice your watch, or that you don't walk like someone who's had to count pennies? She didn't answer. I didn't walk away because you're rich, Lena. I walked away because you lied. I know, she said quietly. I panicked. He took a sip of coffee. It was exactly how he liked it. She remembered. I'm not asking for anything, she said, voice low. I just wanted you to know I didn't mean to hurt you. Poppy came running back, cheeks flushed. There's baby ducks, Lena stood, brushing her palms on her jeans. Can I stay, just for a while? Noah looked at his daughter, then back at Lena. Yeah, he said finally. You can stay. They spent the rest of the morning walking the lake trail. Lena held Poppy's hand while Noah trailed behind, watching the two of them laugh at something he couldn't hear. It made his chest ache in a way he didn't know how to explain. They parted ways at the parking lot. Lena glanced at him before getting into a sleek black car parked across the street. I meant what I said, she murmured. He nodded once, then turned away. That night, after Poppy fell asleep curled against his arm, Noah sat on the edge of his bed and stared at his phone. He didn't call her, but he didn't delete her number either. The following week passed in a blur of grease-stained coveralls and late-night PB and Jtakes. He picked up extra shifts, tried to keep his mind off her. Off the way, she'd looked at him like she saw more than the tired man he tried to hide behind sarcasm and flannel. Friday evening, as he was locking up the garage, a sleek car pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out and handed him an envelope without a word. What is this? Noah asked, frowning. The man didn't answer, just got back in and drove off. Noah opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a formal invitation, embossed, heavy. Elegant, you are cordially invited to the Zanders Foundation annual gala. He turned it over. A handwritten note was scrawled at the bottom in familiar script. I know it's not your kind of thing, but I'd like you to see my world too. He stared at it for a long time. That night, he sat on the floor of his apartment, the invitation in one hand, Poppy asleep on his shoulder. He didn't own a suit. He didn't know which fork to use at a fancy dinner, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. The next afternoon, he stood outside a second-hand shop downtown, squinting at his reflection in the dusty glass after trying on a charcoal suit from the rack. The sleeves were a little short. The cut wasn't perfect, but it would do. Saturday night, Noah dropped Poppy off with his neighbor, Mrs. Reyes, who had raised 4 kids of her own and loved Poppy like a grandchild. He gave her the emergency contact list twice and promised to be back before midnight. He drove to the venue with the invitation folded in his pocket. It felt like walking into another universe. The building was all glass and gold trim, glittering beneath a sky full of city lights. A valet took his keys. A hostess in a floor-length gown checked his name and led him inside. Noah swallowed hard. It was like stepping into a movie, crystal chandeliers, waiters with trays of champagne. A string quartet in the corner playing something that probably had a name he couldn't pronounce. Then he saw her. Lena stood near the grand staircase, her dress a midnight blue that hugged her like it had been made just for her. Her hair was swept up, a few loose strands framing her face. She wasn't wearing a necklace, she didn't need one. She turned, their eyes met, and for a moment the entire room disappeared. Noah, she said, walking toward him. You clean up all right, he said, trying to sound casual, but his voice was rougher than he intended. She smiled. I wasn't sure you'd come. Yeah, well, he said, glancing around. Figured I owed you a look at my deer in headlights impression. She laughed softly. You don't look out of place. He raised an eyebrow. I feel like a square peg in a diamond-shaped hole. She stepped closer. You don't have to pretend with me. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time he realized she wasn't pretending either. I've never been to anything like this, he admitted. Then let's make it one you never forget, she whispered. She held out her hand. He took it. And for the first time since the day she'd walked back into his life, Noah didn't feel like he was waiting for the other shoe to drop. He felt like maybe, just maybe, things were shifting. And this time, he wasn't going to walk away. Noah hadn't danced in years. He'd forgotten how many eyes could be on you when you stepped into a ballroom with someone like Lena on your arm. But it was impossible to think about anyone else when she looked up at him like that. Her hand fit into his like it had always belonged there. The music swelled around them as they moved slow, steady, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her breath against his neck when she leaned in. "You're not bad at this," Lena murmured. "I'm following your lead," he replied, his voice low. She tilted her head just enough to graze his jaw with her cheek. "And here I thought you'd run the second you saw a chandelier bigger than your apartment." He didn't laugh. "Not really." "I almost did," he said. "Then I remembered how hard you chased me down." Lena pulled back, her expression unreadable. "I didn't chase you. You showed up at a public park in sneakers. That counts." She didn't argue. The moment stretched between them, unspoken things pressing in from all sides. Around them, the gala swirled waiters balancing trays of oysters and champagne, couples glittering in jewels and silk, 1,000 little conversations rising and falling under the music. Noah had never felt more out of place. And yet, with her, it didn't matter. They stepped off the dance floor, Lena guiding him toward a quieter corner of the rooftop terrace. The city stretched wide beyond the glass railing, endless lights, distant sirens, the hum of something bigger than either of them. "Why me?" Noah asked, keeping his voice even. Lena didn't pretend not to understand. "I've been asked that question 100 different ways," she said. "Usually by men who think I'm trying to buy them. And you're not." She turned slowly to face him. "If I were, I wouldn't be standing here with a man who drove himself to a gala in a truck that coughed the whole way up the drive." Noah leaned against the railing, arms crossed. "So what is this then?" Lena took a breath. "It's me, trying to figure out how to stop protecting myself long enough to want something real again." He studied her, the way her fingers twisted the edge of her clutch, the way her shoulders had just the faintest tremble beneath her calm exterior. "I don't want to be part of some phase," he said. She didn't look away. "You're not." He nodded once, said nothing. "Come with me," she said suddenly. Noah blinked. "Excuse me. Just for the night, I need to show you something." He hesitated. "Is Poppy okay with Mrs. Ray's until morning? She's asleep before 10 every night. You said she never wakes up until you turn on the coffee pot." Still, he hesitated. Lena's voice softened. "Please." He didn't know why he said yes. Maybe it was the way her voice had dipped just slightly at the end, like she didn't expect him to agree. Or maybe it was the part of him that had always wondered what it would feel like to let go of his reality, if only for a few hours. He followed her downstairs, out past the valet line, toward a waiting car. Not the black SUV from before. This one was a sleek silver coupe with an interior that smelled like leather and something faintly floral. They didn't speak during the drive. The silence wasn't tense, it was thick with questions neither of them had figured out how to ask yet. Eventually, the car pulled through a high gate, up a winding drive, and stopped in front of a modern glass house that looked like it had been dropped onto the hillside straight from the pages of a luxury magazine. Noah stepped out slowly, staring up at the structure. "You live here?" "No," Lena said, walking past him. "This is where I go when I can't think in the city." He followed her inside. The house was minimalist but warm, light wood floors, soft lighting, furniture that looked both expensive and lived in. Floor-to-ceiling windows lined the far wall, overlooking the lake below. A fire was already crackling in the hearth. She toed off her heels and crossed to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of something amber. She handed one to him. He didn't drink it. "Why bring me here?" She sat on the edge of the couch, her bare feet curling into the rug. "Because I don't know how to tell you what I want without you seeing who I really am. You think this house is who you are." "No," she said, shaking her head, "but it's part of it. And I'm tired of hiding parts." Noah lowered himself into the armchair across from her, glass still untouched in his hand. "I don't care how many houses you own," he said. "I care that you don't know how to talk to me without turning everything into a test." Her face fell slightly. "I didn't mean to make it feel like that." Silence hung between them again. Finally, Lena stood and crossed to the window. "I wasn't always like this." He watched her reflection in the glass, the way her shoulders tensed. "My parents died when I was 19. Car crash, I was in college. They left everything to me, every property, every debt, every ridiculous obligation. I didn't know what I was doing. I made mistakes, big ones." Noah didn't interrupt. "I built the company from those mistakes, piece by piece, and somewhere along the way, I stopped trusting people. Because the more I had, the easier it was for people to pretend they cared." She turned to face him. But you never pretended. You didn't even know who I was, and you still jumped in front of a dog for me. Noah's voice was quiet. I didn't do it because I saw you. I did it because someone needed help. I know, she said. That's why I brought you here. He stood slowly, walking toward her until only inches separated them. I'm not a man who can give you yachts or penthouses. She looked up at him, eyes clear. I don't want yachts. What do you want? Her answer was simple. He kissed her. It wasn't careful. It wasn't scripted. It was real, raw, and full of every moment they hadn't said what they meant, every glance, every unspoken feeling building to this one point. When they finally pulled apart, her hands were on his chest, his forehead resting against hers. She whispered, "Stay." He didn't answer, but he didn't leave. The next morning, sunlight spilled in through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Noah sat on the edge of the bed, pulling his shirt over his head as Lena walked in from the kitchen with 2 mugs of coffee. She handed him one wordlessly. He took a sip. Is this what your mornings usually look like? She grinned. Not even close. I think I like this version better. She sat beside him, her fingers brushing his knee. I'm not asking you to change your life, Noah. I just want to be part of it. You already are. He finished his coffee, stood, and looked at her with a seriousness that made her breath catch. But I need you to understand something, he said. Poppy comes first, always. Whatever this is, it has to include her. Lena nodded. I wouldn't want it any other way. A beat passed. Come over tonight, he said. If you're serious about being part of my life, you should see what it really looks like. She smiled. Will there be peanut butter and dinosaur nuggets? No, he said. We're out of nuggets. I'll bring some. That night, Lena showed up carrying a grocery bag and wearing sneakers again. Poppy opened the door before Noah could reach it, squealing. You came back, Lena knelt, holding out a box. I brought reinforcements, Poppy gasped. The Dino ones, extra crispy. Noah leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed as he watched the 2 of them head toward the kitchen like they'd done it 100 times before. And for the first time in years, he let himself believe it was possible, not just to love someone again, but to have them stay. Noah stood on the edge of the playground, the collar of his jacket flipped up against the wind, watching Poppy climb the low monkey bars with Lena trailing behind her, arms slightly raised in case she slipped. The afternoon sky was overcast, the kind of gray that made everything feel quieter, more thoughtful. He hadn't planned on bringing Lena to meet his sister so soon, but then again, nothing about the last few weeks had gone according to any plan he'd ever imagined. She's fast, Lena called as Poppy scrambled across the bars. She thinks she's a ninja, Noah said, his mouth tugging into a crooked grin. Lena caught Poppy on the dismount, and the little girl beamed up at her before bolting toward the slide. Lena turned and walked back toward Noah, brushing her hands off on her jeans. She asked if I could braid her hair next time I come over. She doesn't ask just anyone that, he said, watching her carefully. I figured. They walked in silence for a few steps, the crunch of gravel beneath their shoes filling the space between words. I've never introduced her to anyone I was seeing before, Noah said finally. Lena glanced at him. You think this qualifies as seeing someone? I don't bring women around my daughter unless I'm serious about them. She looked at the playground again, her voice soft. That makes me want to be very careful with both of you. You already are. Later that evening, they pulled up outside a modest brick house on the edge of town. The porch light flickered. A plastic flamingo leaned precariously in the overgrown front yard. Noah glanced sideways at Lena as he shifted the truck into park. You sure you're up for this? I've been through shareholder mutinies, she said. I think I can handle your sister. He reached over and brushed a loose thread off her shoulder. She's protective. Just don't mention anything about renovating kitchens unless you're ready for a 30-minute rant. Inside, the smell of garlic bread and something distinctly tomato-based filled the air. Marissa met them at the door with a towel slung over her shoulder and flour on her cheek. So you're the woman who got my brother to shave twice in 1 week, she said, folding her arms and giving Lena an assessing look. Lena extended her hand. Guilty. Marissa took it. You're taller than I thought you'd be. Is that a problem? Only if you're planning on reaching things on the top shelf before I can, Noah groaned. Can we skip the sibling hazing and eat? Dinner felt unexpectedly easy. Lena asked questions without sounding like an interviewer. She laughed at Marissa's jokes, even the questionable ones. When Poppy spilled lemonade across the table, Lena was the first to grab napkins. After dessert, Marissa cornered Noah in the tiny laundry room while Lena helped Poppy wash her hands. "She's the real thing," Marissa said, crossing her arms. Noah leaned against the dryer. "Yeah, you trust her." He didn't hesitate. "I'm getting there." Marissa looked at him for a long moment. "Good." Because Poppy's already got stars in her eyes. That night, after Poppy was asleep and the dishes were done, Noah walked Lena to her car. The air had that sharpness of early spring, not quite warm, not quite cold. "You didn't tell me you could cook," Lena said, leaning against the passenger door. "I can't," Noah replied. "Marissa's the culinary genius. I'm more of a grilled cheese and cereal kind of guy. I'll keep that in mind the next time I bring wine instead of groceries." He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "You're still here. I told you I wasn't going anywhere, and I'm finally starting to believe it." Her eyes searched his. "What changed?" "You didn't run," he said. "Even when you saw how messy my life is." She stepped closer. "Your life isn't messy. It's full." He kissed her, slow and certain. "I want more of this," he said against her lips. "So do I." They stood there for a while, the street quiet but for the low hum of insects beginning to wake for the season. The next morning, Lena sat in a boardroom surrounded by glass walls and sharper egos. Her phone buzzed in her lap. A photo of Poppy holding a dinosaur-shaped pancake filled half the screen. Underneath it, a single line from Noah. "You're missing breakfast royalty," she smiled. "Something amusing, Miss Zanders?" one of the partners asked, his tone clipped. "Not really," she said, tucking the phone away. "Just remembering there's a world outside this one." By noon, she'd made a decision. She canceled her next meeting and drove straight to the community center on the edge of Westbrook Avenue. Inside, she found the director in a cramped office, surrounded by boxes of donated books and outdated computers. "I want to fund the renovation," she said before the woman could offer her a seat. "All of it. New roof, updated classrooms, accessible bathrooms, and I want it done by summer." The woman blinked. "That's incredibly generous, but why here?" "Because someone I care about grew up here. And his daughter deserves to take her first art class in a place that doesn't have buckets catching ceiling drips." 3 days later, Lena stood in Noah's kitchen, flour streaking her elbow, as Poppy carefully pressed cookie cutters into dough. Noah leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching them. "She's going to think you're a magician," he said. "I am," Lena replied. "I made a 5-year-old believe cookies appear faster if you sing while they bake." Poppy burst into a tuneless melody, and Lena joined in with exaggerated flair. The oven timer dinged, and the girl's eyes widened as if the universe had just proven her right. Later, after Poppy had fallen asleep with frosting on her nose and a blanket around her shoulders, Noah pulled Lena onto the couch. "I got a call from Mrs. Carter," he said. "The director of the community center," he nodded. "She told me what you did." Lena's smile faded. "I didn't do it to impress you." "You didn't have to. I was already impressed." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "She also gave me this," he said, handing it to her. "Apparently they want to name the new art room after Poppy." Lena's throat worked. "I didn't know they were going to do that." Noah took her hand. "You gave my daughter something I never could. You didn't just see her, you believed in her future. I believe in both of you." They sat in silence, the weight of everything unsaid settling around them. "Move in with me," Noah said suddenly. Lena blinked. "What? I know it's fast, but we're not slow people. And I don't want to waste any more time pretending this isn't exactly what I want." She stared at him, searching for hesitation. There was none. "And Poppy, she already calls you her forever friend. I think she'll be okay with it." Lena laughed, wiping at her eyes. "Well then, I guess I'm in." They kissed, and this time it wasn't about longing or uncertainty. It was about arrival. 3 months later, the community center unveiled its new art wing. Poppy cut the ribbon herself with safety scissors, shouting, "This is for all the kids who like colors." Reporters snapped photos. Lena stood beside Noah, her hand in his, her other resting gently on her stomach. When the crowd thinned, Noah bent to whisper, "You told me you weren't going anywhere." "And I meant it," she said, "even before I knew what we'd become." "You're not just part of our life anymore," he said. "You are our life." As the sun dipped behind the trees and the new building shimmered with fresh paint and possibility, Lena rested her head against his shoulder. "Looks like the universe knew what it was doing after all," she said. Noah smiled. "Yeah. It brought you back to me." And this time, he wasn't letting her go. Lena stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barefoot on the hexagon-tiled floor, watching her reflection as she finished pinning back her hair. Her engagement ring caught the overhead light as she smoothed her dress over her hips, a soft, pale green silk number she never imagined she'd wear in a house where dinosaur stickers decorated the fridge. A knock came at the door. "You decent?" Noah's voice carried through, muffled but warm. "Come in." He opened the door slowly, already dressed in a crisp white button-down and black slacks, his sleeves rolled to the elbows like he always wore them. His eyes scanned her, lingering just long enough to make her heart beat a little faster. "You look like spring," he said. She turned, raising an eyebrow. "Is that your poetic mechanic talk?" He stepped inside, brushing a hand down her arm. "Means you look like everything's starting again." She kissed his cheek. "You always surprise me." He leaned against the doorframe. "You're sure you want to do this today?" Lena met his gaze in the mirror. "You're asking me if I want to marry you in the backyard with a mini bouncy castle and 3 kinds of mac and cheese. I'm just saying it's not exactly ballroom glitz." "Exactly," she said. "Which is why it's perfect." He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "We could have done the whole cathedral thing, you know that, right?" "I don't need a cathedral, I need you, and Poppy, and maybe a good playlist." He kissed her temple. "We've got all 3. Downstairs, the house buzzed with quiet preparation. Marissa was arranging cupcakes on a tiered stand shaped like a tree, her fiancé attempting to keep Poppy from sneaking another one. Paper lanterns swayed from the string lights Noah had hung the night before across the backyard, and the scent of fresh, cut grass mingled with the buttercream frosting that filled the air. Lena stepped out onto the back porch just as guests began to arrive. A handful of neighbors, a few close friends from Lena's foundation team, and some of Noah's co-workers from the garage. No showy displays, no magazine photographers, just real people. She spotted Mrs. Ray's straightening Poppy's flower crown near the garden. The little girl beamed when she saw Lena and ran to her, arms outstretched. "You look like a princess," Poppy said, her voice filled with awe. "You helped me pick the dress, remember? But now you're wearing it like magic." Lena knelt and kissed her cheek. "Then you must be the fairy who made it happen." Poppy giggled, then tugged her toward the backyard archway where Noah was already waiting. The ceremony was short. Lena's college roommate officiated, reading vows they'd written themselves. Noah's hands never trembled, but his voice cracked once just for a moment when he said Lena had taught him how to believe in more than survival. Lena's vows were quieter, but every word landed. She told him how he'd made her stop measuring her worth in balance sheets and start measuring it in bedtime stories and pancake mornings. She told him he was her home. When they kissed, the crowd cheered. Poppy clapped the loudest, her face lit with joy. The reception was full of laughter and clinking glasses. Lena danced barefoot in the grass with Marissa, while Noah grilled burgers with his best friend. Poppy insisted on leading a conga line around the garden, Lena and Noah following dutifully behind. Later, as dusk fell and the lanterns glowed golden, Lena pulled Noah aside near the garden fence. "I have something," she said, reaching into the pocket of her dress. He watched as she handed him a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" An offer letter. He opened it slowly, eyes scanning the lines. "You're stepping down, I'm stepping back," she corrected. "I'm naming a new CEO. I'll still run the foundation, but the company can live without me for a while." He looked stunned. "You love that company. I love you more, and Poppy, and this life we're building. I don't want to spend the next 10 years in boardrooms while you're here teaching her how to ride a bike and I miss it." He folded the letter, tucking it into his jacket. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He pulled her into his arms. "Then I guess it's my turn." "For what?" He reached into his pocket and took out a small envelope. "I've been saving this for today." She opened it and found a deed, to a small plot of land near the lake. The same lake where they'd first sat on a bench and shared coffee and goldfish crackers. Noah. I thought we could build something. A home, one with more than one bedroom and no leaking ceiling. Her eyes shimmered. You bought land, I took out a loan. It's not fancy. But it's ours. She threw her arms around him. You're ridiculous. Yeah, he said softly. Ridiculous about you. Behind them, the music swelled. Someone had lit sparklers. Poppy danced beneath them like they were shooting stars made just for her. Lena rested her head on Noah's chest. We're really doing this. We already did. Months passed. The house came together piece by piece. Noah worked on it every weekend, sometimes with help from friends, sometimes just him and Poppy handing him nails and stealing his measuring tape. Lena repurposed old wood from a barn outside town to build shelves for the reading nook. She painted Poppy's room lavender and hung glow in the dark stars from the ceiling. Poppy insisted on a loft bed and a slide, and Noah made both happen. The foundation flourished under Lena's new direction. She spent her mornings at the community center and her afternoons working from the porch while Poppy chased butterflies. She never missed dinner. They adopted a golden retriever puppy who chewed through 3 pairs of Noah's boots before he gave up keeping shoes in the hallway. Every morning, Lena woke up to the sound of laughter and the smell of fresh coffee. Every night, she fell asleep with Noah's hand in hers and Poppy snoring softly down the hall. One evening in early autumn, they sat on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching fireflies flicker over the field behind their house. Poppy was inside, drawing a picture of their family. The dog had been given a crown. Noah had been drawn with a cape. Lena rested her head on his shoulder. Do you ever miss the way things were? He looked out at the stars. I miss having a car that didn't have crayons melted into the dashboard, she laughed. But no, he said, not for a second. She turned to face him. What do you want most right now? He kissed her forehead. More of this. Just this. She tilted her head. Even the glitter in the carpet, even that. And they stayed there, wrapped in warmth and quiet, the future no longer something distant and uncertain. It was here, it was them, and it was forever.